The better we make our product, the better we make our advertisers' business. And, that's what I wake up thinking about every day. It's not simply how do I make Moloco more successful, but it's how do we improve our advertisers' performance? Because if you improve their performance, it will help the company.
Moloco is a machine learning company whose mission is to empower businesses of all sizes to grow through operational machine learning. Moloco was founded in 2013 by a team of machine learning and software engineers with expertise from Google, Oracle, Twitter, and Meta.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome to Moloco's first ever podcast. My name is Rachel Wallen. I lead our US R&D recruiting team here at Moloco. I am so excited to welcome Steve Powers. He is our Global Director of Data Science and one of my favorite people to work with. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm really excited to be here.
We want to know a little bit about you before we kick it off. Tell us who you are.
Yeah, so I lead global data science for Moloco Ads here at Moloco. I've been here for about a year and a half, and I've been working in tech for, almost 17 years now. It's a little crazy. I actually started or kicked my career off at Google, where I have a non-traditional path to data science. I started actually as one of the first salespeople for Google AdWords, working out of the Ann Arbor, Michigan office. Knowing that I ultimately wanted to get to more of a data type of role, I explored different opportunities and actually found an analytics team within Google that supported the team that I was working on and used that really as a launching point to get into data and tech. And I think that's one of the most exciting parts about working in tech is the spaces evolve so quickly. It's really hard to get shoehorned into one space if you're consistently challenging and evolving yourself. And then had the opportunity to work in small business at Facebook for 5 years. And that really taught me the power that data science can have, because one of the challenges that we had within SMB at Facebook was you have millions of small business customers and you have hundreds or thousands of agents. And the optimization problem is trying to figure out how can you maximize the utilization of resources so that you're able to help as many people as possible and drive the highest ROI for the business? And that was really the remit of my team. And we evolved our sophistication over the years. And then fast forward to 2023, where I'd reached this point in my career that I had it's a bit of imposter syndrome, a bit of challenging myself of, am I the product of large tech or am I a product of my own capabilities? Could I do it at a smaller company? Could I actually, take some of the core capabilities and learnings that I had and somewhat build something from the ground up? And that's when I started looking at some smaller companies and kicked off the process with Moloco. And as I went through the interview process, it had that right matching of culture and size and opportunity. And I found myself getting really excited about some of the challenges that folks were telling me that they were having organizationally. And I really thought I could bring a lot of value to the role. And I decided to make the leap and join Moloco, leaving Facebook.
This is so crazy because not only did your capabilities lead you here, but now you're running the whole function.
Yeah.
On a global scale. You just gave me so much information. I think that your path is one of the more organic ones. You kind of took that sales background, which I actually didn't know that's where you started, and moved it into a customer-facing technical role, still dealing with all those issues, but making it more big tech and then into Moloco, obviously, which is amazing. I want to know a little bit more about data science. It's a pretty broad term. People don't know. There's two parts to it. There's the analytical side. There's the technical side of it. There's different teams you could fall in. Tell us about data science in general and then kind of data science at Moloco.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have this philosophy that I use in my teams, and I tell them every day, your job is partially sales and data science. And at first, I get a range of reactions to that. But one of the beautiful things about data science is so many different backgrounds can be successful in this function. And here at Moloco, we work with sales, we work with advertisers, we work with product managers, we work with engineers, we work with marketing. And every one of those cross-functional partners almost speaks a different language. When you're working with product management and you're working with engineering, you really need to be deep in the technical details. When you're working with sales and advertisers, you really need to be able to zoom out and abstract those technical details and be able to explain it in layman's terms. That doesn't mean that you're any less technical, but it's a different capability being able to communicate across those different spaces. And as I've built data science teams, one of the most important things is being able to balance your bench. And it involves both me knowing my capabilities and then really figuring out what are my gaps, surrounding myself with people that can fill those gaps, and then entrusting them to identify their own gaps and fill them.
Yeah.
And so to maximize the impact of the team, I'm always having to do that skill audit. And the space is always evolving, the needs are always evolving, but you consistently need to evolve to ensure that you're driving the most impact.
I mean, that's the answer of a true leader for sure. I appreciate that to be successful, you have to surround yourself with people who make you successful. If people are listening, if candidates are listening and they're interested in joining the data science team at Moloco, what do you think it takes to be successful? Who should be interested and who would succeed here?
Yeah, I mean, within our data science team for Moloco Ads, we have a growth data science team, and folks in this team are working hand in hand with our sales team in region. And really their core remit is to understand advertiser performance. Folks that are successful in this role are excited about using data science to really not only communicate with customers, but to really drive outcomes with customers. So, you're doing things like deep dive in analytics to really understand why this customer performance has changed, and then using that to generate hypotheses, to propose experiments within those accounts so that we can drive learnings, not only for Moloco, but for the customers. And there's super tangible impact in that role, which gets me really excited because the results are instantaneous. Like when you're working with an end customer, you see them implement our recommendations in real time. And then that's dollars that come into Moloco that are measurable in real time. On the other end of the spectrum, we have our product data science team, and they're really trying to think through where can we invest as a company to either fill gaps in our products or to expand our product offerings that will drive the most impact. And folks that are successful in this role really have to roll up their sleeves and understand how the product works in depth and have those technical conversations and have that level of credibility that you know how the system works and know where to zoom in and double click and go super deep with your analysis and where you need to zoom out. And that's one of the risks of data science is like, you can wormhole very quickly if you don't know where you're supposed to dig, because pretty much every analysis will kick up some loose threads. And no matter how hard you pull on them, if they're going nowhere, then you can end up wasting some time. And so there's really a role for everyone. Yeah. It's all about, what gets your blood pressure up and your heart beating and really excited about coming into work every day. And then ruthlessly pursuing that type of role.
Yeah. And this team spans across China, London, the US. How does everybody work together and how does it impact the business as a whole?
I'll be frank. I think this is one area where we're consistently developing. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we've been trying to build is what are the right Slack groups that we need to have? Mm-hmm. What are the right meetings that need to happen? Because cross-geo collaboration's expensive, especially if you're trying to find a meeting that will overlap with London, the US, and APAC. One or two of those regions are going to be at a non-opportune time. And so we really try to prioritize the moments that we really need to get everyone together, and then be very thoughtful about the working groups that we can create that have time zone overlap so that there's at least clusters of individuals in every market that have the knowledge broadly of what's going on.
Right.
As long as there's an underpinning of trust and everyone can assume good intent, we all are able to kind of iterate and flow and identify where there's gaps and, how can we do better and evolve our communication styles.
It's a big team. You're doing an amazing job. And I think it's always going to be hard to collaborate overseas and with a global team. But you guys are doing a lot of hard work. Tell us a little bit about what you're working on. What are the big problems you're trying to solve, or even a recent project that you're really proud of?
Yeah, so on the growth data science side, we're really working with some of the top advertisers that use Moloco in market and trying to understand how does the product work for them or not work for them. And then really distill that into either actionable insights for the advertiser. And sometimes there's feedback for the product teams where, hey, like this is a feature gap and we actually need to figure out how do we retool the way that the product works. But this is what I love about the space. Our improvements don't just help Moloco, they help our advertisers. Like we do work in service of our advertisers. And the better we make our product, the better we make our advertisers' business. And, that's what I wake up thinking about every day. It's not simply how do I make Moloco more successful, but it's how do we improve our advertisers' performance? Because if you improve their performance, it will help the company.
Yeah. Wow. That is really interesting. I hadn't heard about that. That's exciting. It sounds like these kind of ideas come through a lot, and the DS team has the opportunity to take them and run with them. Are there other innovative ideas or other exciting breakthrough ideas that we've had on the team recently?
Yeah. So one of the other things that we often struggle with is thinking through how do we know if Moloco is getting better or worse, if the market's getting better or worse, if our competitors are getting better or worse. And so we've really been tussling with this almost since I joined the company in terms of how should we be thinking about success and how should we be measuring the business? It's very easy to look at revenue, but revenue is a lagging indicator, not a leading indicator. And even revenue within itself doesn't tell you, you can be benefiting from seasonality and you can be benefiting from many different factors. So the team worked on looking at post-back data. So just to take a step back, when we participate in these auctions, we get what's called attributed data and unattributed data. The attributed data tells us the installs, the payers, the revenue that was attributed to Moloco. The unattributed data tells us, well, what was the payers and installs and revenue not attributed to Moloco. And if you sum these, then you'll kind of be able to see, well, Moloco comprised X% of the installs or Y% of the payers for this particular app. And so the team's done a lot of work on try to figure out how to solidify this as a metric that we can measure on a more frequent basis to try to understand how our product's doing. If spend's flat, but we're increasing share, hey, maybe we're improving our product. If spend's increasing and we're reducing our share, well, we're just benefiting from a wave. And actually, it's not that great because we're not capitalizing on that wave. We're losing share in a growing market. And it's helped us really steer the ship a bit better than we have in the past. And when I think about the core of what we do, helping to steer the ship is our primary objective.
Definitely. I mean, you guys seem to touch every part of the business. You work with every part of the business, both on the sales side, the go-to-market side, the tech side. Within DS, do a lot of your team, or does a lot of your team continue to kind of grow through the DS job family, or do people kind of jump ship and go all over the business?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I kind of started with the story of my background, because by working so cross-functionally and getting so much exposure to different types of roles, it opens up a lot of opportunities for folks to ask themselves the question, does this get me excited? And sometimes, yeah, folks are like, yeah, the data gets me super excited. And in fact, I want to get even deeper in the data. And they become, the superstar, super senior technical IC that's able to drive projects by themselves. We've had folks that, they enjoy the technical aspect, but they find actually, I like the coaching element more. And so I've had folks grow from, junior ICs on the team to mature over time and end up leading one of the teams and teaching others. And then I've also had folks that are like, I love this data thing, but what really has me passionate about is product design. And I want to be a product manager. And they're able to leverage their knowledge in data science to either take a rotation on a PM type track, or even some of them just are able to get exposure through products. And one of the benefits of working in a small company, and even when I was at Facebook, when we were in SMB, we almost operated as a startup within a large company. And I know that sounds cliche, but I will say it's actually true, where you're almost able to tailor some of the projects within DS to get exposure of some of the capabilities that are required in some of these different ladders. So one of the key exercises that I do with virtually every new hire on my team, in one of our first one-on-ones, I'll sit down with them and we work through this type of exercise as to like, what gets you excited? And, as folks mature in their role, I'll actually ask them, hey, show me like, if you were applying for jobs today, like, what would you be looking for? Yeah. And we look at the job requirements of that together. And it really helps me give them better feedback, because it's like, hey, if you really wanted to become a product manager, you're excelling in these 3 areas, but here's your like biggest growth area. And in doing this, not only does it help them identify their gaps, but it prepares them for what's next. I'm not foolish enough to think like a data scientist in Moloco ads is going to be a data scientist for the rest of their career. Yeah. Like we all have long careers, we all move on. And I largely see my function here as growing every individual within the team. And hopefully we grow them to be successful in Moloco, hopefully as a data scientist, maybe as a product manager. Yeah. But my primary goal is grow people, keep good people in the company, and then rinse and repeat.
Yeah. And then work with us to bring new good people in.
Exactly.
Obviously, based on your answer, you kind of took the management route and you're passionate about growing people, passionate about growing teams. I would love to learn a little bit more about your leadership style and the culture that you're building for data science at Moloco.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to learn from a lot of great leaders. And like in that process, you kind of start to take elements of every, leader that you respect, and that just becomes part of your toolkit. And then secondly, a lot of my management career has been like trial and error. I've done a ton of reading, and there's a lot of great books about becoming a manager or making that transition from IC to manager. But some of my like core tenets, I try to err on the side of transparency as much as possible. There are certain instances where you can't be as transparent as you would like because of reasons, but to what extent I can, I try to be as transparent to my teams, because I want to equip them with as much information as I have so that they have context as to why are we doing what it is that we're doing. And then secondly, I think it's important to be decisive. The more that you let ghost projects continue just because you're afraid to kill the sunk cost, that can be really harmful. Like if you have a project that isn't going to be profitable, or if you have a project that it was a great hypothesis, but all indications are that we're not going to get it done, knowing when to fish and when to cut bait is super important. And I think building that trust with the team, with the transparency, and then having those conversations and having the team know that I've got their interest in mind helps to create a culture where we're fine moving on when the bet isn't working out. And creating that accountability within the team is really important. And so I think trust, empowering your folks with the information and being decisive in the moments that matter can really help steer the teams to maximize impact. And if you're missing any of those elements, it just makes it really, really hard for people to do their work. Because if at the end of the quarter, I let a project go on for 6 more weeks than it should have, not only did I, lose a bunch of time, but I did a disservice to my people. They didn't have the opportunity to find something more impactful to work on that they could be proud of. I just let them kind of fester on this project that we had all indications weren't going to be successful.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think transparency leads to trust. And so the team can trust that you have their best interests in the company at heart. And I appreciate that as someone who works with you and someone who works here. So that's really exciting.
I will say, though, on that point, it can cut both ways.
Yeah.
I share this story every once in a while because like we get new folks that come in.
Yeah.
So I would say like once a year, I share this story with my team that there was this time where we were testing a new program and we had been testing it for a year. This was at one of my former companies. And all indications were that this program was not ROI positive. And we had been measuring it. We had been spending a lot of resources on it. And I continued to say, like, this is not ROI positive. There's other areas we should be investing. We have limited resources. We need to reinvest in this other space. And I brought this idea up with the exec team at the time. And the business made a call that they needed to have this program. We needed to make this program work. And I saw my job in that instance as a data scientist that was supporting this area to outline the risks. Hey, like, this is what it costs. This is the lost opportunity that we have. My recommendation is to kill the program. And sure enough, that next quarter, that program drove impact, became ROI positive. And in fact, in the next 6 months, that program became the biggest ROI positive program in the company.
Oh, good.
And why do I use this example? All of the data was right. My assumptions were right. What I was lacking was the context as to why we were doing this. And there's moments where you have to make something work because that's where the market's shifting. And there's moments where, you know, you can rely on your fact pack. And so there's an art to the science. And it's okay to be wrong. You can't be right 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And in reality, my job at the time was to educate the risk that we're going to take. And that's always what DS has to do. The business can always take a different decision. Advertisers can always make a different decision.
Yeah.
Our job is to really outline the data, outline the assumptions that we're making, outline what do you need to believe for you to make this decision, and then to measure the counterfactual as we roll it out and set up the appropriate guardrails. I want to create that tone and tenor for the team that it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to make mistakes. It's how you react to those mistakes, and it's how you learn from that experience and how that adds to your toolkit over time that will dictate, you know, where you go in your career. It felt like the worst thing in that 3-month period, but when you zoom out, it's just another data point on this huge journey of your career.
Okay, but I have to ask, who kept the project going? How did it not die?
I was vetoed on that decision.
Well, it worked out.
Yeah. So, I mean, we had to continue to invest. I think where we compromised was, hey, there's a couple of iterations we wanted to make in the next quarter. We're going to revisit the decision at the end of the quarter. And so I made sure that we had the right gatekeeper in place so that we wouldn't infinitely invest in this thing, but had the right flexibility to ensure that we were giving this ample opportunity to continue to iterate and evolve.
Yeah, and it worked. Crazy. Steve, this was incredible. I'm so excited about the work that you guys are doing. I do want to chat a little bit about looking ahead. What are you excited about? What challenges are you guys working on next? Big year. What's happening? We're right in the middle of Q1, so it's an exciting time.
Yeah, I mean, in my first year at Moloco, we were largely in build mode. And, you know, I was very much in the mode of, you know, understanding the capabilities of the team, understanding what we needed to grow in the team, either through hiring, through training, through otherwise, and positioning all of the folks in areas that they could drive the most impact. And then we really started to drive a lot more insight in the second half of last year. And I would say establish the foundations, you know, help us understand, you know, what's our North Star? Like, how do we think about this? Where are the biggest opportunities for the business? Now, if I look forward to 2025, there's so much opportunity ahead, particularly for DS. I think one of the challenges that we currently have is a lot of our success metrics are lagging indicators. And so in the worst scenario, we're hearing about it from our advertisers. In the best scenario, we're seeing the trend as it's happening and trying to react to it. And one of the challenges I have for my team over the next 6-12 months is, how can we get more on the offense? How can we understand and take these lagging indicators and really find the leading indicators for them so that we can kind of ring the bell, either positively or negatively, by the way, before it happens. And, that will help us get a sense of predictability of the business. And to be honest, improve the quality of life of a lot of the data scientists who are looped into fire drills when, things go bad because we didn't have those leading indicators in place. And I think if we're able to do that, there's a wealth of opportunity that we can drive as a team, because not only are we able to get a better sense of what's going on in the business, but we're able to not have so much bandwidth consumed by almost reinventing the wheel every time we're surprised by a movement in the metric, because we always have to do this nascent deep dives. And so as we mature as a data science team and really grasp our hands around the business and how it grows and redefining the product, it really gets me excited about what we can do, because we're operating the business right now without those things. And if we have those things and are able to equip our product and business leadership additional tools in their toolkit to know how they can influence growth, the possibilities are endless.
Yeah. And not to do a shameless recruiting plug here, but adding to the toolkit, if people are listening and they're interested in joining Moloco, what do you recommend as far as qualities that are important for success here? Who should apply? What are you looking for this year?
Yeah, I mean, when I think about folks that are successful on the team, number one, you have to be super adaptive. Our priorities shift really quickly. We're a small company. We learn new things every day. Like, one of the things that I've appreciated the most about coming to Moloco is, in my past roles, I was driving a lot of impact, but everything that I did, I would have folks say, oh yeah, we tried that like 2 years ago. Oh yeah, we tried that like 3 years ago and it didn't work. Here it's like, yeah, we've never done that, or we've never thought about that before. And like, even if the ideas are similar, we're doing them for the first time at this company. And that can be really exciting, but it also means that there's a lot of times where we have to adapt on the fly. And so being able to be adaptive, being able to be problem solving, being able to be communicative, super important. Of course, there's like the basic expectations. We have, a technical bar that folks need to meet. Mm-hmm. But really where I focus on folks that are successful on my team are those that really excel in the analytical thinking, problem solving on the fly, adaptability, to some extent communication. Because those folks, I find, tend to, if they have a gap in their toolkit, they can learn it. Yeah. And they're challenging themselves to learn it. And, having that growth mindset that the toolkit that I have today is not the toolkit I'll have next quarter, next year. That's really the most important thing, because that's the intrinsic thing that you can't develop. If you don't have that mindset that you can grow and you're challenging yourself, I find that's the harder thing. I can't teach you that.
Yeah. I love it. I love that you added one of our Moloco values right in there, our growth mindset in the end.
Uncapped growth mindset, man.
Yeah. Steve, we are so lucky to have you. I'm so lucky to work for you. Thank you so much for joining. Anything you want to add? Anything else you want to throw in there?
No, I think the main thing I would just challenge folks as they're, listening to this is know who you are, but also know what you're excited about and ruthlessly prioritize pursuing that passion. And if you're passionate about driving decisions with data, let's chat, because that's really what we want to do.
For more information on joining Moloco to help empower businesses with the power of AI, visit moloco.com/careers.